The world's most preferred cognac, Hennessy, is celebrating its 250th anniversary, and Ion South Florida is bringing you exclusive coverage. Their artistic collaboration continues, this time with world-renowned artist Ryan McGinnis as they created a limited edition glow-in-the-dark bottle. Stay tuned. We're with the man, the artist behind the design. Pleasure to meet you. I know there was a lot of work, a lot of ideas, creativity behind this, and want to get right into it, kind of how it all collaborated and how you teamed up with Hennessy.
Sure, yeah. So Hennessy approached me out of the blue, and it was a bit of a surprise. And what I did first was contact the artists they'd worked with previously, because I actually know them and they're friends of mine. And so that was the first step that I did to kind of suss out whether or not this was something that I should take on. And what I found was, yes, actually it was all a positive experience, and it's a good project. And so from there, I responded to them and said, okay, let's figure out what to do and how to collaborate. Yeah. So it kind of came out of the blue. Yeah.
So Hennessy, from what I understand, they do these type of artistic collaborations yearly?
Exactly. So each year, Hennessy picks a different artist to work with and redesign their label and create a limited edition, label. So they do it every year. Yeah.
And the glow, the black light. I saw you had a special black light in your pocket there to demonstrate.
Yeah, exactly. And well, we could grab a lit. Should we grab a?
Yeah, let's grab a bottle really quick. We got to show this off. All right. So I know you have a black light in your hand here, so it actually glows here. We're going to demonstrate this live for you. Check this out.
So this is how the label glows. It's printed in fluorescent inks, which actually was a bit of a production challenge, and Hennessy really stepped up and rose to that challenge and figured it out production-wise for me. I mean, as I mentioned, it was a bit of a challenge printing this label in all fluorescence and the fine lines as well. And yeah, I think the result is stunning and exactly as envisioned. Which isn't always the case, when you go through a production process and you have a very specific idea in mind, but it was the case here, and I'm really happy with it. Yeah.
And how does it work? Does Hennessy just say, hey, you're the artist, you're the master, you go to work, or do they give you a vision, an idea? How did the kind of collaboration design process occur?
Yeah, I don't know if they actually use the word master, but it's nice to hear. But it's exactly as you implied. It's using the label as kind of a blank canvas and saying, hey, what do you want to do? What do you see? What do you envision? And for me, it was very important not to use kind of a pre-existing artwork and simply reproduce it or wrap it around the label, but to make something with a little more kind of process and material integrity, which for me means making work specifically for the label. And so this is not a reproduction. This is using the printing processes and the format and exploiting the things that we can do uniquely to that. So what that really means specifically is printing in fluorescent ink and making the work kind of what we call site specifically and with the label constraints in mind. And they were open to all of that.
The black light, I mean, I know Hennessy, they're popping these bottles in the clubs and the nightclubs, so obviously the black light, the fluorescent kind of goes with, I mean, it's going to make a pop. When people are thinking, what do I want to drink? When they see this glowing, this might be one of their most first choices now.
Yeah, it makes sense, the black light, that is in a club environment, but the black light concept really comes from an extension of what I do with my paintings and what I do with this Black Hole series of paintings. I've always exhibited them under black light, and I've always painted them in these kind of fluorescent colors in an attempt to force a kind of real space-time experience of the work. As you can imagine, a lot of artwork nowadays is experienced through reproduction and through a kind of screen experience or JPEGs. And that is a source of frustration for me, because I think the work really needs to be experienced again, kind of in a real space, in a real time. And that's where my interest in using fluorescence and showing the fluorescent paintings under black light comes from. You have to be there in person. You can't faithfully reproduce the work. You have to see it in person. And that was the premise for making this label in fluorescence. And then furthermore, again, to have it shown and demonstrate the properties of fluorescent under black light. And so the club environment just happened to be a perfect match for that. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
It looks beautiful. And now as an artist, what kind of inspires you? Where do you kind of get your creative juices from? You know, where's the inspiration driven from?
Anywhere and everywhere, from dreams and hallucinations to pop music and pop culture, to just, you know, mundane pedestrian curiosities I have about life. But for me, it all filters down through drawings that I make that are very kind of iconic and symbolic, and so I'm trying to distill the world around me into a vocabulary that I work with. The black holes are, just one example of the different elements that are part of that black hole, or part of the broader range of elements that I draw. And so I was able to pull from my world of elements and my visual vocabulary a set of elements that I thought was an appropriate match for Hennessy, and that is, again, these kind of black hole drawings. And when I say black hole, what I mean are these flourishes and these fleur-de-lis that fold in on themselves, and that this body of work and these paintings developed out of this desire for me to make the fanciest paintings I possibly could and the most luxurious paintings that I possibly could. So all of these little flourishes and fleur-de-lis for me are symbols of wealth and fanciness and luxury. And these flourishes are derived from heraldry, and the elements in heraldry that have been used to communicate, again, this kind of this wealth, and are plants and vines and olive branches, and so that's kind of the evolution of these forms. And for me, these are just kind of some of the forms that I use regularly. So when Hennessy first approached me and we started talking about, okay, so what from my body of work is the best match, Hennessy being a luxury brand, it made perfect sense to kind of pull from my archives and my elements, so to speak, and use those in the label. If that makes any sense. That's a long-winded.
No, I mean it's fascinating to me to kind of hear the design process and kind of the just the elements behind the creativity. So very fascinating stuff, and it's a privilege to be here for this special limited edition release party.
Being here, no, of course, yeah. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Yeah.